Hi, this is Lori Johnson with Hancock Whitney Bank, and you're listening to Local Leaders, the podcast. Visit localleadersthepodcast.com for previous episodes or for information on appearing on the show.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Local Leaders, the podcast, and it is part 2, Toby, of our series on EOS.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. I love what you do here, Jim. And
thank you.
It's a privilege to be here and talk to your audience about maybe a way for them to be better.
Yeah.
Build a better business.
I'll tell you what, I've learned so much already. I feel like I should be paying you. There's a lot that we have went over and really kind of, you gave me a real quick synopsis of this, and I was hooked. It was definitely something I saw a lot of potential in. And when I researched it, I realized this EOS is a major company. I mean, it's not,
sure.
It's not something that isn't out there in the ether, as it were. On the internet, you can find all the information you need. They have a very nice Facebook page, by the way, everyone. If you want to go check that out and give it a like, they put up a lot of good information on there. But I love it that we have someone locally that is an implementer of this program.
That's right. So, worldwide organization. There's somewhere in the neighborhood, I believe it was last count, 25,000 organizations running on EOS.
Wow.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 implementers.
That's amazing, man. And it started out with one. I mean,
that's right.
At some point, or none at some point. I mean, there was this idea in this system that was to be put out there, and there was, zero as far as clients at that point, and now you're at 25,000. And so that tells me one of the most important things about this, it works.
It works.
Obviously.
And one of the things you realize when you learn more about EOS is these concepts have been around 100 years. They're going to be around 1,000 more. It just took one guy to understand and see the interconnectivity of those, what he calls key components for your organization.
Yep. And before we get into those, something that just popped in my head that we had talked about previous, and we're probably going to go in depth on this, y'all, a little bit later in the podcast. But one of the things that I definitely want to make sure we discuss is the meeting, how the importance of the meetings that you discussed, where everybody goes in your leadership team goes in a room.
Yes.
And I had brought this up because Amazon, a company that everybody's familiar with, something that Jeff Bezos was a big believer in was those leadership team meetings.
That's right.
And he has said more than once that was probably one of the top keys to the success of that company was allowing leadership teams to come in and be candid.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We call it a meeting pulse.
Yeah.
Right. And there are 3 distinct meeting pulses. There's a weekly meeting pulse, a quarterly meeting pulse, and an annual meeting pulse. Yeah. And the whole idea is to keep the circles connected.
Sure.
We're talking about communication.
Yeah.
Right. In lots of organizations, the circles never connect.
Yeah.
And some organizations, they connect too much.
Yeah.
So with the meeting pulse, we feel like we've got it figured out about what that frequency needs to be to keep everybody connected on the same page, rowing in the same direction.
Yep, my favorite saying. Right, by the way, I've been using that one a lot. Let's get into when we left people last, we had just given like a view at 30,000 feet of the 6 key components to your business.
Yep.
And so maybe let's go into a little more detail with that.
Sure.
Vision is I think the one you started with last time. Maybe
that's the starting point for your business, for any business.
Sure.
Really is the vision component. Getting everybody on the same page, all the arrows pointing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And the way we do that is we get your leadership team in a room. Yep. And we answer 8 simple questions.
Yeah.
And those questions are, what are your core values? What's your core focus? What's your 10-year target? What's your marketing strategy? What's a 3-year picture for your organization? A 1-year plan? What are your quarterly rocks? And what's on your issues list?
Yeah.
And once we do that, get everybody in the room 1,000% on the same page with those 8 questions. We know who we are, what we're best at and love to do, where we're going long term.
Sure.
Who our clients are, and how we're going to get there.
And you said one thing that was key to me, when we discuss this off of the record, I guess you could say, or off camera, and that was when you brought up vision and you said core values.
Yes.
Core values are, I did not realize until you brought this to my attention. It seems like common sense, but more important than people may think. Sometimes you can have the owner of a company, for example, that has core values. Okay.
Sure.
But if his leadership team doesn't share in those core values, that's a major problem.
Train wreck.
Yeah.
It's the vibe of your tribe.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Man, you're full of the you got some
One-liners.
great quotes. Yeah.
Well, it's been working on those a lifetime.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, it's, and it's not that there are, lots of times what we find good people and then bad people in an organization. There's just folks that don't necessarily share in core values, and it doesn't make one or the other any more true. Right. We also say that we're not creating core values for the organization. They already exist.
Yeah.
So we have a few exercises that we take the leadership team through to discover what those core values are. And then, Jim, we take those core values and we use them to hire, fire, reward, raise. When we get into the people component, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But core values should live every day in the organization and be a guide for how folks in that organization and your organization behave.
And I would probably, and I'm sure you'd agree with me on this, and there's probably some organizations out there, maybe they're 10 employees, 12 employees. Mm-hmm. You got a small lawn mowing company or something. Right. You've got 10 employees. Maybe you don't even have core values. Maybe you've never sat down and really thought about, what does my company stand for? What do I want my company to represent at its core? And that's where those values come into play. Or maybe you've never verbalized them to your employees.
Yeah.
There's probably situations like that even.
It's absolutely true. Until you start building an organization, maybe you don't even need them. And then once you do, I can only speak, from my experience.
Which is a great thing.
Yeah.
Because you have experience on that side.
It's just, it's not something that is obvious or that a light bulb goes off. Oh, we got a problem here. It's because I don't have core values. Let me go create some.
Right.
No, but at the end of the day, when we talk about building an organization and everybody rowing in the same direction, it starts with core values.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most important critical pieces is to find those core values that describe who you are. And folks just, I guess, tend to work better when they are alike.
I agree.
And the same mindset.
Absolutely. And if they're not of the same mindset, it probably tends to create more problems.
Creates problems. It does. It does.
Yeah. So focus. I think that should be a big focus in any business's core values.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't know what they are for you, stop and think about it and come up with some.
And too often they core values are sort of glorified. People get hung up. They wind up with more of a marketing pitch, and they hang them on the wall, and they look nice, and they no more describe the core of the operation.
Right.
than, if you were to go pluck a few fancy words out of Webster's dictionary.
Yeah. Right.
So once we get the leadership team on the same page, there's one more tool that we employ, and that's something we call shared by all.
Okay.
You get your leadership team all on the same page, excited that they've finally discovered their core values, and the next thing we got to do is let everybody know. We got to tell them.
Right. Yeah.
So on a quarterly basis, we bring everyone in the room, and we share our vision and our plan to get there. So ultimately, you get everybody in the organization rowing in the same direction. And Patrick Lencioni tells a story of a friend he has, and he quotes him. This fella built a business from the ground up to $1 billion. Mm-hmm. He said, "You give me an organization where everybody's rowing in the same direction, and I can dominate any industry and any market against any competition at any time."
Wow. I believe it.
Every time I say it, it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff.
It really is. And accurate.
Yeah.
But difficult to do. Difficult to do unless you have a system.
A roadmap,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So with the second key component it's our people component, right? Because you can't build that great organization without great people.
Right.
And so, like I mentioned before, we talked about core values. We say the right people in the right seats are the two things that you got to have, and you got to have both.
Yeah.
To build a great organization. So right people are those folks that share your core values.
Sure.
This is a term, right people, right seats. Jim Collins in his book Good to Great popularized the term, get the right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, right people on the bus sitting in the right seat.
Yeah.
Right. And that sounds great, but there's a how-to.
It's one thing to recognize it. It's another thing to implement
That's right. That's right. So we have a couple of tools we use, and for right people, we use a tool we call the People Analyzer, where you take each individual in the organization and you literally grade them against those core values. Yeah. You set a bar for what right looks like, mm-hmm. And you evaluate each individual in the organization about whether or not they share the core values and represent those core values on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And it becomes a communication tool, right? When you sit down with your folks, everyone wants to feel like they're contributing in the right way. And so giving them feedback and creating a dialogue with your folks on what those core values, what right looks like in terms of behavior is a super powerful tool that drives culture.
Absolutely, because those people want to feel like they're part of the solution.
That's right.
Right? I mean, if you feel like and I can speak from that, having worked for somebody else in the past, I want to feel like I'm a part of the solution, and if everything's happening around me and I'm on a leadership team, for example, and I have no input, just the culture problem it would create, maybe even a little resentment. I would feel like my opinion doesn't matter. Why am I here? I'm not valued, as an employee. So I love it that it's kind of all inclusive with this leadership team. It's not just, we're going to sit down with the CEO or the vice president or the president of the company, and then he's going to dictate everything. This is a team effort, if you will.
Absolutely. You're building an organization.
You're building an organization, and that is hugely important and probably lacked more than people realize, because I think when you get at a certain level in business, especially when you're an owner or a vice president or a president, maybe sometimes you might forget how important it is to include your leadership team in things, or make them feel included, make them feel like they're offering up something.
yeah,
if you will.
And you know that once you realize you can't do it on your own, and you know you're going to need help, you begin to assemble that organization, and it just happens in fits and starts too often.
Right.
The road is a crooked path, and feel like EOS helps to straighten that path out some.
I agree, and I want to ask you a question and just get your professional opinion on the importance of this. How important is culture?
What's everything?
Yeah, I believe that too. It can sink or swim you, I think, in a lot of cases. So one thing with EOS that in an EOS implementer is that they can go in and not only can they instill a positive culture into the organization, but they can also spot culture issues, you know, through what you were just talking about, which is these, you know, where they're basically taking these core values and grading these leadership team members on whether or not they are a fit for these core values.
That's right. That's right. Like I said, we have some exercises. You know, one super important thing, it was important to me as an EOS implementer. I'm not a consultant. Right?
Yeah.
People aren't hiring me because I know more than them about their business.
Right.
We have a saying that I absolutely love, that the wisdom is in the room. So it's my job to help discover that wisdom, and make teams, help teams become their best.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you made that distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. Super critical. You know, I spent a lot of money on consultants, and they never helped me in the way that we're able to help organizations with EOS.
Yeah. Well, you have a system. And that, to me, is a huge difference.
Sure.
Honestly.
Yeah. No, it's true. That's true. So the second tool we use with the people component is a tool we call the accountability chart, which is it's an organizational chart on steroids, right?
Yeah.
Where we look at the structure of the organization first, no people in seats, and we figure out what that structure, that optimal structure, needs to be to provide clarity and reduce complexity.
Right.
We define 5 roles for each seat on the accountability chart. And then we just simply go about putting folks in seats where what they're great at and love to do match the 5 roles in the seat.
Sure.
And
seems like common sense, but, you know, not done as much as you would think.
Well, we have a tendency, I think, to overcomplicate things, especially when we don't understand them at their root, at their nature. Sure. And so that's where EOS comes in and does that work for you of simplifying processes to help you get where you want to be with your organization.
Very good.
Yeah. So the next component is the data component.
Yep.
Right. And it just a P&L is great, right, for measuring the past.
Yeah.
So what we aim to do with a scorecard is to settle on what those critical numbers are, those activity-based numbers that make that P&L, whatever it is at the end of the month, and we look at those on a weekly basis so that you have a finger on the pulse of your business.
Yeah.
And before you get to the end of the month, when it's too late to do anything about it because you're looking in the rearview mirror, we use a scorecard to help us fix whatever problems might arise before they become a result.
Molehills to mountains, as they call them.
That's right. So we work with the team to create that scorecard, and ultimately, ideally, a scorecard is comprised of 5 to 15 measurables, right, that are going to keep your finger on the pulse of the business. Ideally, at the end, when we've got the right scorecard, everybody in their organization has a number. Everybody in the organization has a measurable that they're responsible for, so that, again, they feel like they're doing their part to create success for the organization.
Yeah, it's huge, huge. And I would also imagine on that point with data, your scorecard is the way that the organization can catch those little small things before they balloon. And I'll use my example. I'll use an example of my old world, and that was the paint world.
Yeah.
And we were salespeople. Sometimes you might have a customer. Let's say this: a customer owes money on his bill. Okay, that was common in my industry, and so maybe he's 10 days late. Okay, if you don't start making him aware of that, because sometimes they're just not aware, or they're busy and they just hadn't. The next thing you know, he's 30 days late.
Yeah,
and the balance is double what he was late when he was 10 days late, and that's a really just dumbed down example of the mass amount of issues you can have that will absolutely blow up if you don't address them, a week after they occur, let's say in the 7-day, the weekly time frame. If you go all the way to 30 days, imagine what that problem would be.
Sure. And some folks, get 90 days out.
Yeah.
So you're right. You're right. It's their activity, proactive numbers that help you address issues before they become problems.
Absolutely.
And we do a 13-week look back so that you can begin to see trends and patterns. A number off 1 week might not be a big deal, but 5-week pattern of a number being off, now that's something we might need to address.
Absolutely. Love that. So that's the data side.
Yeah. And so, getting your vision and your people and your data components strong, right? What we've seen happen when an organization becomes strong in those three key components, it becomes very transparent.
Yeah.
Now, problems that come up jump out at you, right? Yeah. You're able to see the inefficiencies, the problems, the issues, and even the opportunities.
Yeah.
Like you never have before. And so what Gino found was that organizations need great organizations are really good at solving their issues. They're great at teeing them up, recognizing the issue, digging down, figuring out what that issue is at its root cause, and solving it in such a way that it goes away forever. That's really the key. So we're not making the same mistakes over and over again.
Right.
And so with issues, there are two tools we introduce. One is an issues list. And the thing about that is creating a cultural vibe to where everybody in the organization feels okay when they see a problem that they raise their hand and say, hey, this is an issue. We need to discuss it. We need to solve it. And it gets on a list somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? And then we use a tool called IDS. It's the issue solving track, where when you get in a room, when you come together as a team in order to solve your issues, you do three things. First, from that list, you're going to prioritize what the top three issues are. We go three at a time, right? But the idea is if you don't get around to solving anything else in the time you have together, you're going to solve the three most important issues of the day. And so you start with the first issue. You identify what that issue is at its root, because sometimes it's just a symptom, right? Sometimes you got to dig down and really get down to the heart of what that issue is.
Yeah.
Once we've done that, everybody gets to say their take on it.
Yeah.
We call that discuss. One catch, nobody gets to repeat themselves.
Yeah.
Repeating's politic, and it's a waste of time.
Great
right?
point. Yeah.
Everybody has a chance to put their 2 cents in, and then once the conversation becomes redundant, you move to solve, and solving looks like an action item that gets taken, somebody assigned as being accountable, responsible for that action item. Yeah. And once we do that, we consider the first issue solved and we move on to the second issue, and then it's rinse, repeat
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And, you know, more often than not in organizations, issues, and what you said there that I really liked, issues sometimes on their surface, on the face of them, you would think you're solving it, but if you don't get to what's underneath there causing it, it may be a whole different. You may be putting a Band-Aid on something rather than solving it.
Yeah, I said maybe in the last episode that entrepreneurs deal with 136 issues simultaneously, right? At the end of the day, at the root, there really only ever been 23 issues in the history of business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's just what you said, because those 136 issues, most of them are symptoms, right?
All right.
And once you dig down to the root cause, there's really only about 23.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. All right. So we'll move on from there to
process, just about getting all the most important stuff in your business done the right and best way. Businesses, they have 6 to 10 core processes. There's an HR process, there's a marketing process, there's a sales process. You might have 2 or 3 ops processes, an accounting process, right? 6 to 10 core processes that really make the business run. And so what we help our clients to do is to identify what those processes are, and then in a tool we call the 3-step process documenter, we document those processes.
Yeah.
Taking a 20-80 approach where we identify the top 20% of the steps to get you 80% there, trying to avoid a 750-page SOP manual that nobody's going to read.
Right.
Just major steps, high level. It's called an entrepreneurial approach.
Yeah. I like that.
And, I can speak to that SOP albatross, right? We did that very thing. We hired somebody, spent a lot of money. They created an SOP manual. I don't know if anybody ever cracked it open to read.
Yeah. It was very nice, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, the idea is to keep that document living, breathing, updated, and make it easy to do. And then with capturing those processes, the next tool or discipline we use is something called followed by all, where everybody that touches that process, right, is trained to do it the right way, and they're being managed and measured to do it the right way every time. With process, it's that franchise model approach to cookbooking your operation, right? It makes the business more scalable.
Yeah.
Makes it easier to manage, actually a little more fun to come to work every day. You sleep better at night and smile more during the day when you've got those core processes simplified and documented and then 100%. Followed by all.
And they work.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I mean, it's less stress.
Walk around in the organization, and the reward is seeing everybody executing on their specific job in the organization and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a game changer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine so. And then we'll move on, and the next is traction.
Yeah. Last but not least, in the model, the vision is on the top of the model and traction is down below, and that's not by accident. And we say that traction is about bringing that vision down to the ground.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, it's when businesses don't realize their vision, it's usually due to a weakness in the traction component.
Sure.
There are 2 tools that we introduce that make sure that doesn't happen for your business. And the first is rocks.
Yep.
And these are the quarterly 90-day priorities that the leadership team identifies for the organization.
Right.
The most important things that we need to work on over the next 90 days. And guess what? It's 3 to 7. It's not 27.
Yeah.
less is more, and EOS, everything about EOS is about simplifying and pounding that into entrepreneurs' heads that less is more. So it's 3 to 7 priorities for the organization that we want to get done over the next 90 days. And ultimately, everybody on the leadership team has a rock or two that they're working on.
Yeah.
And what that does is creates what we call a 90-day world, right? Where everybody is focused, they're working on getting those priorities done. And at the end of the 90 days, they come up for air. They look back, see what they've gotten done over the last 90 days, check off the list, rock completed. And then they pull out the VTO, their vision tracker, and make sure everybody's still on the same page, because sometimes as leadership teams, we can get off
sure.
the same page.
Yeah.
Right? Make sure everybody's on the same page, and then you identify what's important for the next 90 days and get back to work.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the second tool in Traction, and that is, we touched on it earlier, the meeting pulse.
Yeah.
So the meeting pulse is a weekly 90-minute meeting that follows a very specific agenda where we have a segue, everybody checking in with good news. We do reporting in that agenda where you review your scorecard, your rocks, any customer headlines that need to be discussed. There's a to-do list in that agenda where action items that were assigned from the week before, we check off, did those get done? It's a little accountability check.
Yeah.
And then the lion's share of the meeting is spent IDSing the issues of the organization, solving the problems of the organization, and making sure that you get the most out of the time y'all have together.
Yeah.
Then you wrap
huge.
up with a conclusion. You make sure that everybody's on the same page with to-dos. Were there any cascading messages that need to get sent out? Was anything decided in that meeting that needs to go out to everybody else in the organization?
Yeah.
And that happens on a weekly basis. It's the moment of, really the moment of truth for a leadership team, getting together on a weekly basis, making sure everybody's on the same page.
And I would imagine one of the most important components of this whole thing is that weekly meeting.
Well, so yeah, if you're not doing it, and we call it an L10 meeting because the idea is whatever you would score your meetings on a scale of 1 to 10, if you follow this agenda, it's going to set your meetings up on a 10 scale.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. If you're not doing the level 10 meeting, you're really not doing EOS.
Yeah. That's right. That's a huge part of the system.
That's right.
And you mentioned rocks in there, which is, I don't know why, but that's like one of my favorite parts of the whole EOS system. I just think that because I'm a big believer in, setting goals, and rocks to me are issues that need to be addressed and fixed. So for me, that's setting a goal. I want to take this rock and fix this problem.
That's right.
And then look, when I was on leadership teams in the past, you better believe I was peacocking when I fixed rocks, right? So we're at these 90-day meetings, and I'm like, oh, my rocks are done.
Yeah.
I need more rocks.
That's right.
Give me more rocks. I was proud, and I felt like I was solving, and I was solving an issue for the company. But, I guess by accident, my entire life, I've been a goal setting guy. So, I would identify things that I needed to fix in whatever business I was in, and I would just make a list, and I would go down and I would cross it off as I did it. So similar, just not as dialed in to what EOS does. EOS is kind of like you said, it's kind of like my plane on steroids.
Yeah, but also said that there are concepts that have been around forever.
Sure,
and
absolutely. That's the best thing about this system is we've talked about this. A lot of this was, it's taken the best out of many different ideas from many different people, I'm sure, and then marrying them, taking what works and using it.
That's right. That's right. In fact, rocks was a concept first, I guess, written about by Stephen Covey.
Yes. Yep.
And just the
Seven
idea
Habits
that,
of Highly Effective People.
Yeah. Where he describes a glass cylinder with, you got rocks, pebbles, sand, and water, right?
Yep.
The rocks are your big priorities.
Yep.
The pebbles are your daily tasks. The sand is the distractions that might keep you from getting your work done that day, and the water is everything else.
Stuck in the sand.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you put the sand, the pebbles, and the rocks, put the water in, there's no room for the rocks to fit.
Yeah.
Right? However, if you reverse that order, put the rocks in first, then the pebbles fall around the gaps that the rocks create.
Right.
Sand fills in around the pebbles, and the water then does the same. Everything fits.
Everything fits. Love it. Love it. Yeah. So we just covered the the 6 components.
That's right.
And I've popped charts up as we've been talking, and you can see you've got your business in the middle, and then you've got those 6 components surrounding that. What I really like about this system is it's only 6 components. It's not 90 different things. It's not something that is overwhelming to the business owner or the leadership team, for that matter. It's something that with an implementer such as you can handle as a business. And I'm sure there's a lot of businesses out there now, and they're wondering, like, how would I know if I'm a good fit for this system?
Yeah. So we have what we call a target market, and that's 10 to 250 employees. The owners are growth-oriented and open-minded.
Yeah, open-minded, important, right?
Yeah. They're also open and honest and willing to be vulnerable with themselves and one another. Very important.
Yeah.
A touch of humility.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're frustrated.
Sure.
So
maybe just with growth. Maybe
or the lack of
growth. Yes. Yeah. Maybe they feel like they've hit their pinnacle and they can't get over that hump.
Yeah, we call that hitting a ceiling. And here's the news you need to know. Everybody hits a ceiling.
Yep.
It's inevitable.
Yep.
Right? Organizations that can implement a system like EOS.
Yeah.
Or master what we call 5 leadership abilities, which are the ability to simplify, delegate and elevate, predict, systemize, and structure their organizations, break through that ceiling.
Yeah.
Right?
And they create a new ceiling at that point.
It's inevitable.
Through that.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you're continually going up.
EOS gives you the ability to recognize those ceilings and understand what you need to do in order to break through.
Very good. And you mentioned 10 to 250 employees. That's your sweet spot. That's not, if you have 275, it doesn't mean
there are companies that have 1,000 employees run on EOS.
Yeah,
there are companies with 3 employees.
There you go. That's just a sweet spot. And is there, you work with many different businesses. There's not one specific business that you work with.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, for profit, not for profit. I've worked with all of them.
Yeah.
Anytime there are people in an organization that you need to get where the energy in the room needs to be organized, there's a place for EOS.
Yeah. And you brought this up earlier, but one thing that I do want to hammer down with EOS that I think is very important is the process is designed to work with the entire leadership team and of an organization. So it's not a process where it's Toby meeting with the the owner or the CEO, and I'm just going to work with him, and then he'll implement it with his guys and gals. This is a process that is absolutely designed to get the leadership team and the owner all rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, that's right. To say. And what we find is that as the leadership team goes, so goes the rest of the organization. So our work is with the leadership team, and then we help the leadership team to push the EOS model down into the rest of the organization.
Yeah, huge component. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have heard what we've said the last couple of episodes, and they maybe they want more information. Hopefully they want more information.
Sure.
Definitely they want more information. What are the steps from there? If someone's heard this and they've got 20 employees and a leadership team they'd like rowing in the same direction, what do they do? Is it as simple as just reaching out to Toby or?
Well, there's a website that's full of resources, right? And there is the option to self-implement. Yeah. If you find yourself maybe not quite comfortable, busy with the day-to-day running of the business,
sure,
to step back and mastermind implementing a system like EOS, that's where the Implementer Network comes in, and that's something I'm part of.
Yeah, you are the implementer, Toby.
Thanks.
You're the only. You are the one.
The only one you know, right?
The only one I know.
Yeah, and so we'll come out. I would ask for 90 minutes to give a run through. We have a presentation that shows you the model and how it works.
And I've seen that, y'all, and it's great. It's great. He does a really good job of that, and it's not like it's not something that is just mundane. It's very interesting and something you're going to get a lot out of just watching. Yeah.
And there's a process that we'll outline in that 90 minutes of how we go about implementing EOS. There's a very specific process for how we go about doing that. And I think we mentioned in the last episode that process takes about 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think that the noteworthy thing there is, as implementers, we're not looking to embed ourselves in your organization and become a permanent fixture. We're going to step in, run you through a process for implementing EOS, and then we're going to graduate you. We're going to step out and let you go on running your business in a better way than you did before. Yeah,
and so let's talk about that 2-year process real quick. And you had mentioned that there's times when you'll come in and you'll, as an implementer, you'll assist in leading these meetings and things of that nature. How often does that occur?
So there's a setup process. I kind of call it. It's going to feel like boot camp.
Yeah,
where we come together on day one for what we call the focus day.
Yep,
it's a full day.
Yep.
30 days later, we start with the vision building for the organization. So we call it vision building day 1. 30 days after that, I come in for vision building day 2. It's a spaced learning process, right? Where we spend the day together, your heads get filled, you've got stuff to go do in the organization, you go back to work and implement whatever it was we talked about on that day together, figure out what's working and what's not working. You come back, we hammer those issues out, we press forward so that by the end of day 3 together, right, we've essentially established the framework for EOS.
Yeah.
After that, we go into what we call the execution phase, where I come in on a quarterly basis and run your quarterly meetings, right, EOS style. And then annually, there's a 2-day annual. We do some team building on day 1 of the 2-day annual. And then day 2 is just another quarterly where we plan for the next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So, and what I wanted to kind of paint a picture of there is Toby as an implementer is with you 100% on this, and definitely on his side of things. He don't let the information blow your mind to the point where it seems like it may be hard to grasp. This guy does an amazing job of just breaking this stuff down, where if you've never ever seen EOS before, with just that 90-minute meeting, you'll have a good grasp of what the initial goal is for sure.
Yeah.
So
right. Thanks.
Toby, I'm going to link, just like I did with the first episode, the website.
Yeah.
I'll link that to this video. And that way, if you want more information, people, please feel free to go click that link and check it out. Now, Toby, do you have specific areas? In some organizations, there's specific areas you work. Or what if someone in California right now sees this and they want an implementer, but they want Toby?
It depends on the circumstances. I say travel for landscapers, for sure. But it's all about fit with EOS and finding the right implementer. And so I'm not going to say no. I might say that there's someone over on the West Coast that might be a better fit.
Yeah.
But really, my focus is our community.
Yeah.
And
100%. It's something we share.
Really high on working with folks in the state, trying to build a better organization. I have clients in Mississippi. I've got clients in Texas.
Yeah.
But really would like to do all I can to give back to the community.
100%.
That I live.
Yes. And look, Livingston Parish, Baton Rouge community, if your organization would just like to learn more, Toby would be glad to sit down with you and give you, a 90-minute presentation on what EOS can do for your company. And I'm telling y'all, it is legit. It is something that if you are experiencing frustration in your company right now, you're doing yourself a disservice by not at least checking this out. That's my opinion. So please feel free to reach out to me. Message me if you want the information. I'll put you in touch with Toby as well. So,
thank you, Jim.
Toby, thank you, man. This has been an amazing. I hope everybody got out of this what my goal was, which was to just give you better information to run your business. And every now and then, I want to do things like this where it's education for our business owners out there. I think that's important, and that's something that Toby is offering with this system, and him being an implementer of it, meaning EOS. That I'm telling you, every organization can use, and every organization can benefit from. So check that out. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you. And until next time, folks, I'm Jim Chapman, reminding you, love your community, support local business, and keep leading. Thank you very much.